Hey guys, welcome to the Keep It 99 podcast with your host, me and Mena, here on episode 21.
21.
We have a special guest, Jacob, here today. He's a very, very interesting person. A lot of funny stories to tell. So,
Sure.
yes, you're just full of funny stories. Also got a great podcast voice, so that's why you're here. You're auditioning to take Mena's spot.
Well, I won't talk any more than he will.
So you got any funny like childhood stories like either that you have or like maybe Cyril, something about Cyril or Ben?
Well, they're always fighting. That's pretty funny.
No, give us a story about
I want like a
rage
specific
room.
story. Yeah,
The
Rage
rage,
monster.
Rage
Rage?
monster.
Rage monster in the rage room.
he's basically broken everything you can imagine.
He being like your brother, right? Your younger
Yeah,
brother.
my brother.
Yeah, like how? Like what has he done?
Okay, what happens is he's playing a video game, and he loses any video game. I have a video of him raging at Fall Guys yesterday.
Hey,
I'm serious. I'm serious.
You wanna play?
Okay, he's in the final two, so I just start recording because I know he's gonna rage. And then he loses. He throws the controller. He starts walking around. It was actually not that bad of a rage. It wasn't even an
Compared to others?
average. Yeah, it wasn't even an average rage.
I heard he broke the couch once.
Yeah,
No
he broke the
way.
couch.
Broke the couch.
What's the worst thing?
He lost to Ben in a game of Madden. I wasn't even home. Ben sends me a picture of the couch on the ground. I was like, "What happened?"
That's actually hilarious. Let's see, my rage stories. I have one. One like this is probably like a year after I got my Xbox. I was in like seventh grade, and I was playing Madden, and Ivana kept like walking in front of the TV. He kept like blocking my view. I got really pissed, so I threw the controller at her head, and I missed. I didn't hit her. I missed, and I hit the wall. And so now there's like a big like scuff mark on my controller. It didn't break.
Oh, we have plenty of broken controllers, jammed controllers, marks,
I have a lot of
marks on the
jams on
wall.
Yeah, marks on the wall, yeah.
Like when I used to play GTA, not even me, my brother. There would be like death matches or like to get a prize or to get a car. So there was this one specific day, he lost, and he just kept banging on the bed until like it's shaking. Like the sensor does not work. Like it shakes inside the controller, and we still have that controller now.
I saw when I went to your house actually his desk, like right in front of where he's sitting, is like chipped up.
Oh, that's me,
That's your desk.
That's
Sorry,
me.
yeah, your desk. How did that happen?
dude. I just get mad.
You start punching.
Not even like I don't even get mad like that. It's just when I'm super competitive and that's the thing I'm focusing on. That's it. That's all you hear the whole day.
So I'm gonna take what you said about
Oh,
competitive.
and actually, my monitor broke,
Yeah, I know that.
but I didn't rage. It broke by itself because it had like a little clamp on it. I didn't punch it.
Yo, everyone has to learn in general. When you're playing a video game, it doesn't matter what happens. Like, you're just gonna break something
Yeah.
for no reason.
So I want to go to the competitive point. I want to talk about competitiveness a little bit. Obviously, like, sorry. In general, like most people are like super competitive and yeah, and so like competitiveness like affects us in many ways. And sometimes there's a positive competitiveness, but like there's also a very, very, very negative type of competitiveness. So where do you draw the line between like positive? Where do you? Sorry, our topic
Team
person is going crazy. But where do you draw the line between like good competitiveness and bad competitiveness?
And like yesterday, we were playing basketball, and I was taking it seriously. I was like yelling at my team whenever we did something stupid. But at the end of the day, I'm just having fun. So it's like if we lose the game, it's whatever. Like I'm competitive inside the game, but I don't take it seriously after that. It's just for fun. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna like some people, even like professional sports, take competitive way too far. They get in fights over stuff.
Yeah.
It's like it's not worth it. You're
I think
just out
bad
there to play.
competitive is like someone's hurt after.
Yeah, exactly.
That's exactly
I was gonna
what it
say
is.
that because like you look at like all these like professional athletes and like their post game interviews where they're chill with their opponents. Like on the field, they're like they can't stand each other. The second they walk off, they're like best friends. It's like best friends off the field, like head to head, like competitive nature. Like they don't care about each other like on the court, obviously. So it's like there's that balance, and I feel like video games kind of puts a
Ties it
really
all.
big like gray area over that like line.
Because you don't see the people you're playing with.
Exactly.
You're just in a room by yourself.
So I'd like to further the discussion and be like, and just put the question out there, like, how do video games really like affect kids? Like, are video games positive? Are they negative? Like, what's your take on it? And then I'll get your take after. What's your take, Jacob?
They're both. There's a lot of good things in video games. You can have a lot of fun with your friends, like bonding time, just like what we're doing in person, right? But negative is when you take it too seriously, too far, whatever, you're breaking stuff, hurting people. Like, it's just a video game. You can let it go.
Yeah. Well, no.
I mean, I think negative is spending endless hours on the game and like not having time for anything. Not
Sounds like
having
you.
Time. Yeah, I mean, was like me. But endless hours, I think that's very negative and it affects you in every aspect of your life, such as your studies and all that. But a positive way, you could, like Flight Simulator or Tractor Simulator, all those are like,
Like educational?
yeah, like educational games that teach you, such, or rather as playing Fortnite, that's like, I mean, you're not
Yeah.
learning anything out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree 100%, and I feel like there's a lot of like positives to video games that we don't understand, like the cognitive abilities that come with it, the ability to, think through problems, to solve problems. Like those are things that, and it's like presented in a fun way. But obviously, there's this limit to how far it can go, and then there's like this balance, right? So there's like a moderation. Like once you pass that, like when they're saying like endless hours upon hours upon hours. Maybe we talked about this in a previous episode a while back about like it affects you like socially, like how you deal with people socially, like even like just that communication aspect of a video game. Like sure you're like on the call like hey yo like whatever, but all you talk about really is the game, and you even see kids that like all they can talk about is video games. So like what are your thoughts on like the communication, what's the word I'm looking for?
Aspect of video games.
Yeah, like how do video games affect the human communication, human connection?
It's not good. I don't think it's good for it. Like, even if you could talk to someone for 6 hours online and it could be fine. But I think more often than not nowadays, it's all trash talk and people going at each other over whatever it is. I don't think it's good for anyone.
And do you think that how you treat someone online like relates to how you treat someone in person, or do you feel like those are not connected?
They're definitely connected, but one thing I noticed, like when we went to the mission trip, all the people that were talking on the Zoom, like most people that talk on the Zoom, were not really talking in person. Like some of the people that talked the most, when we first got there, they were not talking at all. Like I noticed that. So I feel like, because people treat you different online. Everyone's like, you talk different online because they can't see you. They don't they don't have to respond right away. Like you're asking me a question, I'm responding right away. But if you ask me when I'm at home, I could just sit there for 4
Yeah.
hours and not respond, right? And think about it. So when you're in person, like it's much more engaging in conversation.
So I'll follow up on the other question. Do you think that comes from a lack of like the inability to talk in person, whereas you can talk online really well? Does that come from a lack of confidence, or does that come from like a lack of like people skills?
Definitely. I'm sorry.
Go ahead,
But
go
like
Go ahead, yeah.
definitely people skills. Confidence does not have to do with anything that you're doing in the game. Like, I mean, you don't need to do anything
No, I'm talking about
Just
like
communication online.
the communication, like
online.
like let's say you're a good communicator online, like you're a good texter, whatever, like all this stuff, and then in person you're not really, you're not really like that. Like we know a lot of people like that. Does that come from a lack of confidence in person, or does that come from just the fact that they don't really interact with people like face to face?
Interaction. I mean, not interacting with people, and like looking at media. It's both affecting one person. It takes both of those to affect that topic. Like you can't talk in person because you're not confident, because you're online all the time.
Because like you're not
Yeah.
going out and talking.
And you're spending endless hours on the game or on the media. So I think both aspects affect that. Like both of them are included
That's a great answer.
to affect it.
That's what I was looking for.
I think one other thing is when you're talking to someone online, you don't realize like how little you know about them. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I've talked to people online. Obviously, we all have that. We've never seen before in person, and it's like you know them from one little thing, and you can relate to them about one little thing. So that's what you're gonna talk about. But like here, we know each other much better. So like conversation is much different than if we're talking to somebody online about like one specific topic. That's all we know about their life.
All right, I'm gonna challenge you real quick.
Okay.
I'm gonna throw something at you. I remember you told me, by the way, I remember you told me like when we were at the convent trip that is the most that you've ever like talked to other people
Yeah.
than like before. So like, would you say, because before like you were a pretty shy person,
I still am.
you
but
still a little bit shy, but it's gotten better. Would you say that the reason why you got better at in-person communication is because you were forced to, or was it more of just like you just kind of made that decision?
No, I knew before, like, I knew I was a shy person. I needed to be more social. So I knew that I was gonna have to force myself to talk to people.
So
but
you like took the opportunity type of thing?
yeah, and then we're sitting in a van of 15 of us, and there's only 2 people that I know. So they're gonna start conversation. Like they realized that I wasn't talking, so they made me talk.
Yeah.
And then I hated it, but then afterward is like now everything's so easy. I'm not as shy anymore.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy like that instant change that I noticed. I was like, geez, Jacob now talks. Now he can get him on the podcast.
I mean, you really can't live life without being social with others. That's what
Exactly.
I think. Like, you're not just, like you said, 2 people in that van, and there's 15 other people. And they're all going to start conversations. But if you're shy, like, you can't do anything. You're just going to sit there and nod your head.
Yeah, the hard part for me is like you just have to find something that you can relate to them with.
Yeah. And humans were made to connect. Like if you look at like the way how God created us, right? God created us to have connection, to have friendships, to have relationships. Like when God put Adam in, he made Adam and then he put Eve to be a companion to him. And Adam and Eve were companions to God. And they had a job. Like there's so many things in life that we have now that we don't notice comes like work is like, for example, like work is a command from God. A lot of people don't see that. Or like relationships and friendships are commands from God as well. We were created to be friends, to talk in order to communicate. So I would just like to see like, what are your thoughts on like people, talking about how like this like whole like independent lifestyle, this like give yourself your own space, like stay away from people. Like to what extent do you believe in this independence?
Okay, that it's different for every person because I had a teacher one time, like when we were on virtual school, and she was like, I talked to people all day, but it was online on Zoom, and she went home and she was like, and I feel like she said she's like feeling down because she didn't actually see a single person all day and she didn't talk to anyone. But like for me, sitting at home, not talking to anyone all day was fine for me, but obviously not sustainable for a long time. But like just depending on how much people like to talk, some people can't stay at home all day, or they'll just like, I don't know. That's how I think about it.
I mean, Mo, do you have any thoughts?
No, I just went blank, dude.
You're good.
Did you see that?
No, I did not. But like independence is very there's an importance to like being like having independent moments and like having time for yourself. But there's also obviously that importance of interacting with others and pushing yourself to talk more. So
I mean, also when you're like independent, you're gonna fall into a dark spot. Like you're gonna
when
fall
you're
into
like
a bad
fully
spot.
independent, yeah.
Everyone has a different like a limit. You know what I mean? Some people don't. Some people have like if they're independent for a day, they're gonna fall apart. Some
Yeah,
people it
that's
takes a
true.
lot longer. So it's different for everyone.
I just personally think like if you cross that limit, you're gonna fall into a bad spot in your life, and you're obviously gonna need people in your life. You can't live life by yourself. That's just what I think. You need others to help you.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree. And so then I'm gonna go to the next question, which is like, what is your advice for someone who just like went through this change of like being like completely antisocial to now like partially becoming social, right? What was one piece of advice? What is one piece of advice you'd give to someone who is like trying to take that step to like talk to more people and to be more active in the community?
Oh, this is advice like for anything that you don't want to do, but you have to do it. Like I just saw this. It was like if you feel uncomfortable doing whatever it is, then it's actually a good thing. Because like I felt very uncomfortable. I hated talking to people in the van, but now looking back, it's like if I didn't do that, I would still be where I started.
I mean, I remember you came up to me and you were like, dude, like, how do I talk to people? And I was like, just do it. Just go out and talk. And you were like, bro, what does that mean? Like, and it's true. Like going
hard
out
to
and
start.
doing it. Exactly. It's hard to start. But once you do it, it's like so rewarding. And that goes back to another podcast we have about the like being comfortable versus uncomfortable. Like it is so important to be uncomfortable because that's where you grow the most. You know, you grow in uncomfortable situations because that's where you learn. Like if you're always going through the same things day in, day out, there's no room for, you know, for growth. So I applaud you for doing that and for taking on that because that's like, you know, very important and very impressive. So
Thank you.
to move on to another question. I'm full of questions today, but my next question for you, Jacob, is as someone who's a man of God, right? How do you take that like godly approach like to your friendships that are like outside of the church? Like what do you do like, you know, when your friends from school like, you know, when they ask you challenging questions about like who has that ever happened to you? First off, before I continue.
Oh, my friends are like they're very accepting of like the fact that I'm Christian. Some of them that aren't Christian, just like, you know what, like we know what he's gonna do. We're not gonna force him to do anything. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Which I'm grateful for that they'll do that.
That's great. I'm glad. When do you have any friends that?
I mean, not really, but some friends ask me about like Orthodox, but I'm not really good at answering. But I usually I try to answer at my best limit or capacity.
Yeah. So like for example, I'm gonna just give you an example. Like if someone comes up to you and is like, they're going through a tough time and they're like, you know, where is God? Like why doesn't like where is he? Like where is his existence? Like how does God, you know, like work in you? Because as someone who's a man of God, you see, you know, it's like whatever you want to see, you're gonna see, you know. So it's like if you open the eyes of your heart, like you will see where God has worked through your life. So how would you respond to someone that goes like, you know, like God doesn't work, you know, in our lives? Like how do you respond to something like that?
Oh, we just can't see it. We're just humans. There's a verse, and Paul wrote somewhere. It's like the grace of God transcends our minds, something like that.
Yeah.
It's like we don't understand what He's doing, because this is just like you can't take like 1 week or 1 month, like one bad period of your life, out of the entire thing, and be like, that's the one, like that's put me down. I can't do the whole God thing anymore. And it's like there's a whole plan going.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's a hard part in every plan. It's not easy through everything.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with that, and I'm also gonna say like the reason why I brought this up is yesterday I was listening to Impulsive, which is another podcast, Logan Paul's podcast, and he did an episode with Gideon, and I was watching it because you know entertaining,
It was.
and they actually came upon this question like, which was really weird to me. I was like, wow, that's kind of crazy. They talking about this, where it's like, you know, Logan was asking them like, you know, like does God really work? Is God even like real or whatever, like a higher power? Like, does he even work, you know, in our lives? Like, is he able to, you know, do all this? And I feel like God works, but we don't see it like while it's happening. It's so hard to see God working while it's happening. It's so easy to see like, you know, oh, last year, oh, I see where God, you know,
Yeah, I mean, they even like said that on the podcast. They were like, look back 5 years, like you did not do that by yourself. God
Yeah.
had to have helped you. Like there was someone higher than you that helped you achieve that. That was in the podcast, in their podcast.
So I'm gonna ask, sorry, Jacob. So I'm gonna ask you, like, because like self praise and like self accomplishments, there's like, whenever you say like, oh, it's by the grace of God, it's by God. You know, God really does do the work, and like we do our part, God does the rest, right? How do you explain to someone who doesn't necessarily believe that like God is doing His work and we just do a small portion? Like, how do you explain to them without like you know hurting their feelings? Like, oh, you did all this work.
Okay, let me ask you a different question first, and
Okay.
it's related. Okay, when we say that we're gonna go to paradise and heaven forever, humans don't understand forever. Can y'all explain forever to me? It doesn't make sense to us because everything we do,
Is
you know, like
limited.
when does this end? When do we get home? Like everything has a ending point to it,
Yeah.
right? When does summer end? When does school end? Whatever. When does the day end? We don't understand forever. Like that doesn't make any sense to us. So that's just like one small part of what God does is the forever thing. And none of us understand that, right? So how are we supposed to be able to understand like the power of God? we're humans. We can't make any sense of it, but we just have to trust that He's working through it. And you know, if you look back on anything, it's very clear that He was there the whole time.
I agree 100%. I mean, I couldn't have said it better. But again, like, there's this issue with like the society around us is that we need to know the why before we like do it. Like, we need to be like, why am I going to do this before I do it? And there's this big principle in orthodoxy where it's like,
You do it before you know it.
exactly, you
told me
do
that,
it
yeah.
before you understand. And I feel like that's like, that takes like a level of humility to really be like, I'm going to do it just because. Just because, you know, the church said so, just because God said so, I'm going to do it.
I mean, but no one's ever like that. There's always has to be a reason to do it.
Exactly.
No one's ever like, you told me to do this, I'm going to do it. There's always, you told me to do this, now give me a reason why I should do this.
I mean, I agree. And that's like, that's where I feel like that, like, sorry. That's where I feel like that, that issue comes into play where it's like, how do we explain to those people, like, to do before you understand? Or even that same thing back to that question about, like, does God work? Like, you need to know God works before you understand what He did, before you understand, like, how He worked. Any thoughts on that? Either of y'all?
It's hard because the amount of faith you have to like just throw yourself out there is very hard. That's like what we see some of the saints, they do, like they trust God so much, and then He rewards them with everything they could ever want. It's amazing to see.
I mean, if I just off of another person's point of view, there's all these other religions. Like, why they're gonna say, why should I pick Christianity over all the other ones? There's so much like not conflict, but there's so many more decisions to make. Like, other than Christianity, there's so many more religions to choose from than Christianity. They're gonna have to question everything that happened in Christianity, and that's just how they're gonna feel assured or secure to be in that religion.
So you're saying like from their perspective, they need to know, like, they need to understand like everything and like understand like why everything is before.
Yeah, just so they could feel secure, and they're gonna like follow that religion.
So I'm gonna go back to this like trust in God, because this ties in like this trust in God thing. Like, trusting in God, it's so first off, it's hard to trust things that you can see in the first place. Like, it's hard to trust people, it's hard to trust the government, whatever. It's hard to trust things that you can physically see and physically play a part in. But it's so much more harder to put your trust in something that you don't see and you don't understand.
Exactly.
And so, like, I would like to pose this question to you, like, where do you find your trust in God? How do you find that trust? Is it like a decision, or is it just like something that just happens? Is it like, how do you get to this point to where you can trust God?
The faith and trust is very difficult. Like, it takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, to the point where you just trust Him to do whatever for you. You know what I mean? Like, you just can look at saints that we've seen that have trusted God with everything they ever had, and He gave them everything. It just takes a lot of time and dedication, reading the Bible, to really trust Him, because you can see, like, when you read the Bible, you can see God everywhere, and then you can build your trust off of that.
Yeah, I mean, when you're in a really bad spot in your life, like, and there's a light that comes and saves you, you automatically know that's God. You can't stop something without, you can't stop something without God. You can't do it by yourself. It's just impossible. Like, if you're addicted to drugs, you're gonna keep doing it and doing it until you're dead, unless you, like, that light comes to you, or you want to go to that light.
And I think this ties back to something we talked about in Sunday school on Sunday, which is like, you know, we plant the seed, or someone plants the seed, but God gives the increase. And I feel like that's a very, very, very important part that we need to understand is like, what we can do can only do so much. We can only do so much, right? God has to play a role, because it doesn't make sense that, like if, for example, like if like, you know, we're on a mission trip or whatever. Here we go. We talk about Jesus for an hour to some family. There's no way in that 1 hour
That they're gonna.
because of us, that they change their whole life around and pick up Christ and, convert to Christianity, whatever. It's impossible.
Actually, you were invited into someone's house, right?
Yes, I
Can you
was.
tell us how that went? Did you talk about God at all to them or no?
So sorry, this is like kind of like a side story, but I'll go on it. So when we were on the mission trip, just for some background, we were going around giving out food, and we got invited into an Afghan family's house. And there was 3 women. 2 of them were from Uzbekistan and one's from Afghanistan. And only one of them spoke English. There was like a lot of translation going on. And it was a woman from Afghanistan that spoke English. So the 2, like she had to translate from Uzbek into Dari or whatever. Sorry if I said that wrong, to the Afghan language, and then translate to us.
Yeah.
English. So we're sitting there, we're just talking. We're not really talking about God because they're obviously Muslim, like they're Mohaggabin, whatever. So it's like not hard to tell. And we're just sitting there talking about, how's America, how's life, basic questions like that. Like, like what brought you to America? Like, normal questions. And then we started trying to talk about God a little bit. And it was a little bit hard because they were pretty like hesitant, like resistant to it because they're, Islamic. And we asked if we could pray for them. And they were like, no, like God won't like accept your prayer because you're Christian, or he'll get mad or something like that. So like whatever. So we still prayed for them when we left. But we didn't really talk a lot about Christ. But it goes back to my point of like, all you have to do is plant the seed. Like sometimes planting the seed is just as simple as just like, smiling. Like there's so many little things that we can do where if we, like for example, you have the faith of a mustard seed, you can move a mountain, right? Like literally it says that in the Bible, faith of a mustard seed, you can move a mountain. There's a proof of that.
Mount Mokattam.
Yeah. Thank you. Mount Mokattam in Egypt. I forgot what forgot what his name was. Anyways, that's another story. Where like, there was a mountain that was moved. Like that same, like that's in the history. So if faith of a mustard seed can move a mountain, you saying, talking about Christ for 5 minutes can convert someone, not through you, but through the Holy Spirit, through God working in you and through you and working in that person's life afterward. Like God gives the increase. All you do is put a little seed. Like you see these little seeds, apple trees, like massive, right? Big trees. Where does it start from? A seed like this big, and so all we have to do is plant that little seed. Just throw it in there a little bit, pat it with some dirt, maybe water it a little bit, and God sends everything. So it's that faith and that trust that we need to have in order for that to happen. Which goes back to the question like, how do we get it? Which is like how you answered, like just always surrounding yourself with Christ, and it's a decision. Like, it has to be a decision. Like what His Grace Bishop Yusuf said on Sunday. Like when it comes to love, for example, love, like loving your enemies or loving people that hate you, loving people that hurt you. There's 2 levels to love. There's a mental level and there's a heart level, right? There's like the actual love. But there's also a mental one first. You have to choose to love something, like do the actions of love, because love is action, right? Love is not just words. Like love is action. Like you have to do those things to love in order for God to take that mindset and transform it into like an actual like feeling of love towards others. So I feel like it goes to that same point of trust. Like in order to trust God, we have to decide to trust God. We have to decide to put our faith in Him, make that conscious decision, and then over time, like God will transform that into like pure faith.
But how do you trust God? Even though you can't see Him?
Again, it's a decision.
Yeah, but how do you do it? You could always say, "Yeah, I believe in God," but you just neglect.
I get what you're saying. So you're saying like instead of like, let me just make sure you're getting it right. I'm getting it right. Like you're saying like you can always just like go through the motions and say like, yeah, I do.
Yeah.
But like you don't actually.
But what do you do to back that up?
Okay. So it goes back to that like, love is action. Like that faith in God is action. Sorry. So
Man,
I apologize. That subway's really hitting right now. But like you have to like pray to God with real, like, genuineness that you really, really, really need to believe that He's going to do it. You need to decide that you're going to believe. And it's like, it's so hard to explain. And sometimes it takes God to do something in your life for you to notice it. Sometimes it takes God to literally, you know, either manifest something or speak to you in some way, and you need to actually notice it in order for you to start putting trust in Him. Like, I'll give you an example, like for me, like a recent example. When we were at the convent and we were, sitting there talking about, people leaving the church and all that. That one night we sat down and really prayed. Like, we really, really prayed. We all went around in a circle.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And we really prayed. That next morning was James chapter 5.
And
right?
it had it on verse 19.
Verse 19, 20. The last two verses of the whole book of James.
And it was not a coincidence.
It was
meant
exactly
to be.
like, it's those things, it's those moments where you realize, like, wow, like God is real.
listening to us.
God is listening. When I ask Him to, hey, God, guide me in the right direction, how, I can, like, bring people, like, back to the church, bring people back to the truth. And the verse is, blessed is he, or like, I don't know exactly what it was. It was something like, blessed is he who, turns the sinner away from his ways.
Yeah.
And back to the truth, but roughly is what it says. Like, when that's 6 hours later, the first thing that you read, the first thing that you see, that's like, but again, you need to believe that that's not a coincidence.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So there still is that aspect of trust that you need to have in order to, like, fortify your trust. Does that make sense? So sometimes trust in God comes in those moments. Sometimes it comes like, but over time you slowly build up this trust, this faith, and this trust until, like, He is the only thing you need. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on that, Jacob?
Oh yeah, one thing for me personally, like the more you start like praying and going to liturgy, whatever, like getting close to God, it's almost like an addiction. You can't stop. You just keep going and going and going.
It's like surrounding yourself.
Yeah, that's really good to build your faith like that.
For example, you asked me, like, why, like, when you're in the car with me or whatever, when, you and Chris are driving around, like, why I don't let y'all play, like, rap music, or don't let y'all play whatever music you want. Whereas, like, for me, like, in my car, it's only hymns and that's it. The reason why is because whatever goes in is what's going to come out.
Yeah.
Whatever you fill your brain with is what's going to come out of your brain. So you always continuously fill yourself with Christ, all that's going to come out is Christ. Mm-hmm. So that's why I don't let you play Little Baby in my car.
No. It was just Kanye.
Kanye, who cares about Kanye? Same thing. But yeah, so that's like the reason why, like, there's only.
My bad. I was just seeing if it's turned on.
Okay, that's.
Okay, there.
You good?
Yeah, we're
All right.
good. We're good.
So that's the reason why, like, I only play hymns in my car.
Mm-hmm. Whatever you fill yourself with is what's
Exactly.
gonna come out.
Yeah, there's a quote that I saw. I can't quote it directly, but it says like, water in nature is like very soft. Like you can put your fingers through it, whatever. And then your heart is like a stone. But the word of God is like pouring the water onto the stone. And over time, the stone will wear away.
Yeah.
The hard heart will get worn out by the word of God, the hymns, just surrounding yourself with the water, surrounding the stone with the water 24/7, the stone will dissolve.
I mean, and like going back to that point, that same thing, like people's mentality of church is on Sunday, Christ is only on Sunday. If you take one cup of water and you pour it on the stone once a week,
Nothing's gonna happen.
never. Like it maybe will take 70,
still,
80 years.
But it's still pouring water.
But it's still doing something. But in order to really undergo that change, to really, put yourself in God, you have to continuously water that like a river, and it will cut through the rock, perfectly. So I really like that analogy.
Yeah.
One thing I was thinking about, I think this morning, is about like going only on Sunday, how it makes no sense. How like, say a human lives for 80 years, right? Mm-hmm. And then obviously forever, we don't understand that. But say it's 1,000 years, okay? So over 10 times how we live. But only 1 out of 7 days, and not even a whole day, people leave at 12 and go home and do whatever they want. Mm-hmm. Not even 1 out of 7 we're going to give to him. But he's going to keep us there in heaven for infinite amount past our life. We're doing everything for the 80 years, 6.5 days out of the week.
And it's
just
like
a half day we give.
Sorry.
Fills for eternity.
Not even half.
That shouldn't, like.
It's like 3 hours.
Exactly.
It's not even that. It's
not
like, and
equivalent.
it goes back to that point to where, like, like free will, for example. Like God gives us free will to choose, and people will say, well, why would God send someone to hell? Like, why shouldn't we choose? Here's the response to that: is you choose with your life on earth. If you can't live with God for 80 years, how are you going to live with him for eternity?
I mean, it's just like a test. Like you either pass or you fail. You study right now and pass, or like don't
It's
do
not
it and
even
fail.
that. It's like if you have the opportunity and you won't take the opportunity, like if you have the choice to go to church and you decide I'm not going to go to church, how are you then when you go to heaven? How are you going to be able to be around God all the time? If you
When
can't be
even
around
go on
God,
Sunday.
yeah, if you can't even go, once a week, whatever, you can't, pray every day. If you can't read the Bible, how are you going to be literally in the presence of God forever if you can't even do it for 80 years for 10% of an
Exactly.
hour a day?
Yeah.
How can and so it's honestly like on us, like God is the just judge, right? He's merciful. Like he wants us to go to heaven, but we have to want to as well. It can't just be, one of us wanting. So
And things like even if we give our life to God 6 out of 7 or 7 out of 7 days a week, I think we still don't deserve it.
exactly,
Like,
that's where that mercy
yeah,
comes in.
we still don't deserve it.
I mean, just like in liturgy, we say like according to your mercy, not according to our sins, like that same thing. But we have to put. A lot of people believe that like you don't need. There's no effort to be put in when you're a Christian. A lot of people have this
There's a
misconception.
lot of effort.
Exactly, a lot of people have this misconception. Like, for example, like I don't want to stir up any issues, but like Coptic in the church, people are like, oh, we don't need Coptic. It's a dead language. All this stuff. Where it's more of like. They're like, oh, I don't understand it. It's like if you wanted to, you could. If you put the effort in, you go learn everything, you will understand it as time goes on. And like, I'm not saying like, please don't take this out of context. I'm not saying like that all English churches are wrong or what. Like, I'm not saying that at all. I actually think it's a great idea for like the evangelistic purpose. But to say that Coptic doesn't belong in the Coptic church is, it again shows that like we believe that we don't really need to put that effort. Like we do. You know what I'm saying? And so Christianity is a conscious effort that's always, and I feel like a lot of people don't notice that. It's like trials and tribulations, like Paul says, like you will have, or Christ says, you'll have trials and tribulations. Paul said, he went through chains, he went through beatings, and whatever. He's still joyful in Christ. Like we have to keep that mindset that we will always be joyful in Christ no matter what happens. And we have to expect to put in an effort. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Any final thoughts?
man. Good episode.
Roller coaster.
I love how we started off with video games and ended with Christ.
Exactly, man. That's how it's supposed to be. Anyways, guys, thank you.
So much.
Thank all y'all for watching.
Thank you, Jacob, for hopping
Thank
on.
y'all for
Thank
having
you,
me.
Jacob, for being on the podcast. We appreciate it a lot. Thank you for the great conversation. Thank you for everyone watching if you liked it. Thank you,
Thank you to
Chris,
Chris.
for doing the audio.
Barely watching it.
And thank you guys for everything. Thank you for supporting. Like, comment, subscribe,
Go follow the IG.
share it. Go follow Spotify. Everything.
Post notifications.
Post notifications. Everything is turned on. And we'll see y'all on episode 22.
21.